want to start by stating the incredibly obvious that there are two parts to this word storytelling. And the first part is story, and the second part is telling. And at Kayak, of which I'm the editor, our goal is to make them both compelling and creative. Now the story part, I think we would all agree, that's pretty easy. Actually, can we just have a black screen for a minute, please, before we get to that? Thank you. Yeah, the story part, that's all around us. I could probably ask anybody here. Madeline de Verchères, Billy Green, the Empress of Ireland, Marilyn Bell, the Franklin Expedition. This is not a room where I need to convince you of that. Les histoires sont dans l'air, sont sous nos pieds, dans les murs. They are everywhere. So when we choose a theme for Kayak, and we put out 4 issues a year, we do a theme for each issue, there's never a problem finding what stories we're going to include. Our themes can be light. Some of you have the issue about superheroes, Canadians and the comics. But we also do things like the War of 1812, of course. Whereas for adults, you could write think pieces about the ideas behind these things. For kids, you have to have drama and detail, and above all, you have to have people. Notre histoire est pleine des caractères et vignettes merveilleux, et notre équipe aime beaucoup les envoyer en nos lecteurs. We love bringing these stories to kids. Our history is packed with them. We only get 4 issues of 36 pages a year, 4 issues a year of 36 pages each to do that, so there are always stories we have to leave out. And we also have to use what space we do have to represent the country geographically, different eras of our history as much as we can. Like many of you, I take note of those little things and file them away as I travel to bring them out down the road. So yes, the story part is fun. The story part of storytelling comes pretty easily. The telling is fun too, but it can be hard work. And I'm trying to see if there's anybody else here. Neil, I don't know if you'd agree, but I maintain that writing 120 words for kids is way harder than writing 1,200 for adults. I'm seeing some heads nodding. Here's why. The material has to be just as carefully researched, has to be accurate. Whereas adults might engage in a debate about it, a kid is going to open it and say to his or her mom, "Hey, did you know?" And I need to make sure that that's correct. You have to use a vocabulary that a 9 or 10-year-old can understand. How would you explain what's a constitution? What's a constituency? What are human rights? What kind of vocabulary do you have at your disposal? We have to be concrete. You have to have examples. Chaque mot compte. And in terms of vocabulary, if you try to be too cute or too hip or sound like you're up to date, you will fail. Trust me, I know this. I have teenagers. You also can't assume a knowledge of history or geography. You can't assume your readers know what the gold rush was, or where the South Shore of Nova Scotia is. And of course, you have to be sensitive to the age of your readers. Our September issue was all about the First World War. We talked about people getting killed, we talked about horrible conditions in the trenches, but we didn't talk about men drowning in the mud, or falling into a crater hole with decaying bodies. So you have to be sensitive to the age of the readers. All I've talked about so far, though, is the words. And it pains me greatly, as a lifelong lover of words, word nerd, to acknowledge that what matters at least as much, probably more when you're working with younger kids, is what you do with the words and the images. And this is where our genius art director, James Gillespie, and our designer, Lee McKenzie, come in. All 3 of us are part-time, by the way. I send them something that looks like this. Do I just need to, okay. I send them something that looks like this. I'm thinking this would be interesting. Let's have a little piece about this. And then Lee sends me back something that looks like this, which is pretty fantastic. This, by the way, is from our December issue, which is a little bit of a departure. It's all about things based on the number 10, top 10 lists, everything to do with 10, because it's Kayak's 10th anniversary in December. We're pretty happy about that. Fact of the matter is, the words alone can't do it by themselves. Les mots seulement, ce n'est pas assez, even if they're short and concrete and entertaining. Pictures and layout and images are essential. And of course, one of the most important images is our cover illustration. I'm not saying we always get this right, but let me show you some of the options that the illustrator sent us for that First World War issue. This is where it started. They're really striking, but we said to her, nous avons dit que nous voulons voir des visages, des personnes, et nous aimons beaucoup les petits fleurs rouges, mais nous avons peut-être plus de mouvement. So we wanted a little more movement, we wanted to see people's faces. The idea was nice, and we just needed a little bit of work. So here's what we ended up with. The sketch on the left, and the finished one on the right. Again, I'm not saying we always hit a home run, but I thought you might find it interesting to see the thought process that goes into it. And I'll be completely honest, when we got to this one, I've never done this before, but I actually called the art director, James Gillespie, and I said, I'm a little bit worried. We don't want to glorify war, but we also don't want to demean it. Do these guys look too defeated? And he was very gracious and just kind of sighed. And we had the discussion, and then finally, I work from my home, so I called my in-house focus group, which is my 13-year-old son, Jonah, and I said, what do you think of this? He said, I love it. And I said, why? He said he liked the colors and he liked the red poppies. And I said, did the men look a bit defeated to you? And he said, no, they look determined. Good. I said, do you think they look, we often have an image of bravery in war, of heroism. Does this look right to you? He said, no, this just shows another way that they're brave. So, okay, I'll take that, thank you. Just briefly, maybe I'll just show you two other covers of recent issues, just to show you some of the range. The one on your left there is, we did all about the history of food in our history. That's an image of Kate Aiken, the famous cookbook author and radio host. Wanted to include her. And then over here, of course, this more serious issue, Confederation. And I thought it was genius of the illustrator to put the toy railroad in there. So those are covers. The format of the actual stories is important because you can't just have a bunch of text and a bunch of pictures for kids. We have an original fiction story in every issue. And again, the December issue, this is the one all about top 10, 10th anniversary. I was really stuck on how to write a fiction story related to the number 10. So again, I asked my husband this time for ideas, and he went, oh, number 10. What about the metric system? Oh, that's perfect. So the result is a story of about 800 words, plus a factual sidebar with information about how the metric system came in. Because kids now, when you think about it, we have this ridiculous hodgepodge of metric and imperial. We don't think anything about it, and neither do they. But this is what we ended up with, is a little girl in her grandparents' store, and the grandparents don't quite get the concept of metric through to, my generation that sort of started learning it in the 70s and quite comfortable with kilometers and pounds at the same time. So that's one alternate format we use. Another one that I think is kind of our signature is the original comic that we do in every issue. So it's written really like a movie script, and then the illustrator takes that away and makes it into something magical. And okay, I acknowledge this one's a bit of a stretch. It's a comic about Sidney Crosby sort of first coming to prominence at age 10 when he scored something ridiculous like 159 goals in 55 games. He was 10 at the time. I thought that was close enough for us to have an excuse to write a comic about Sidney Crosby. So we find that when the design and ideally the words work together, when they're fun and engaging, that lets us sneak all kinds of great information into the games and the stories. Because the crucial thing, and I think Neil and Mike would probably agree with me on this, when it comes to our history and kids, it can't be good for you. There is absolutely no need to grit our teeth and shove history down kids' throats. We just have to find the people and the events and the details that will fire them up. Take Confederation. Those talks were big drunk fests, apparently. A lot of the delegates brought their daughters, hoping to marry them off, find somebody that potential husbands. The delegates to the Charlottetown conference had to stay on board the ship they sailed in on because there was a circus in town that took up all the hotel rooms. Sir John Ainier set the hotel on fire. This is the interesting gateway into these stories. We just have to train ourselves to look for them. These are the ones that give, if we're being honest, adults too a way into these stories. If we respect kids' intelligence, we use words and images and design that they understand and package it all with a bit of wit and some color and energy, they will take it all in, and I believe they will ask for more. And actually, maybe the rules aren't that different after all for kids and adults. If we just find great stories and tell them well, I think we've done our job.